Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me for your conference, the Isaca Budapest Chapter Conference. It's not my first time with you in Budapest, but this time it will be a little bit different. As well, I will share with you about a topic that is knowledge. Actually, as everything around us kind of a change in the last months, I will also approach the topic of the knowledge from a different perspective. Actually, during the next 20-25 minutes, I will share with you my vision about ignorance, a particular type of ignorance that is the ignorance related with information and technologies. Join me and stay just to understand how this works not only in companies, in societies, but how can you directly can use these concepts to improve your career and to be a better professional. So let me present myself in the way of you can understand what I do for a living. So this is me. Actually, I'm not a minifigure of Lego, but this is the type of environment that I love to be. I love to share. I share both in academia, being a teacher, about topics related with governance, strategy, risk and opportunities of information technology, but I also work as an independent advisor. So I work mainly with executives that want to understand opportunities and threats of this called digital transformation. So as you can see, my way of sharing is very visual, is very concerned not in the knowledge that I want to transfer with the people to the people that I'm with, but actually to get the best tools to engage people and share all this experience with everyone. So you can understand how concerned I am passing all these 8 months having to give these speakings and this conference, not with you physically, but remotely. But if you look to the board, the blackboard in front of you, you will see about what we are going to talk here. It's kind of this confusion of sharing knowledge, understanding knowledge, and actually this is what I've done all my career. I study about computer science and management, so I was kind of a middle of two concepts, the information technologies and the other side of business. I work as a consultant and as an auditor, so I actually was somewhere in the middle, also being an advisor. Today I work with companies, but also with universities. So all my life, I kind of not specialized, but work more mainly in these bridges of putting people and specialists most of the times together. So every time someone asks me, so, but Bruno, after 20 years of profession, you must be a specialist for something. And I kind of developed this defense calling myself a specialist in not being specialist. People typically replied, okay, so you are a generalist. And every time we discuss generalist, it's kind of a bad meaning because as someone that is generalist, typically, okay, someone just knows things not from the bottom up, but top down. When I saw this book recently, I bought it because actually it gave me this comfort of understanding that nowadays with the world that we are living, this speed, more and more speed world with this complex volatility and ambiguity world, we actually have to get new skills that are most of the times not so specialized, but are more related with putting pieces together. So this is what I do. I put pieces together, both in companies. I try to do also this in universities when I'm teaching. So this is, for example, how I teach cybersecurity. Recently, I used this to explain to members of a board of directors committee how they need to approach cybersecurity. And when you look to this is kind of what I do. I put topics, I explain pieces to people, and actually I use lots of Isaca knowledge like COVID. So when you look to these, you kind of understand that my first concern is to give landscape to the topics that I approach. So my concern is not going deep in the topics, it's not going specifically to the topic A, B, or C, it's just to put things in a context that they can be understood together. So at the end, it's kind of, this is my mind map. When I think in a topic related necessarily with the risks and opportunities of information technology, this is my mind map. So when I'm doing these specific topics of governance and management or cybersecurity, I always try to mix all these topics in order to make sure that organizations don't address specifics just because of the specifics, but actually always keep focus in the value creation, particularly how information and technology can contribute to that value creation. So explaining this approach, it's not easy, and it's mostly related with these two topics that we kind of mix normally, that is what is complicated and what is complex. My living is in the side of the complexity. So what I do, I try to manage complexity or help companies and organizations to manage their complexity. Because we are, as humans, we are not so comfortable dealing with complexity as we are dealing with complicated things. So it's like complicated is something that we do in a linear approach. Auditors, our colleagues, are very good in this side. They know how to follow some types of steps. They know how to follow in the sequence. So this is how we rationalize things from the beginning to the end. But my job is not thinking things from the beginning to the end. It's thinking things from the top to the bottom. And when this is the case, we are more using this other side of our brains that is more related with the abstraction and the definition of concepts and structures, where we can afterwards go deeper and deeper until we understand the specifics. So it is not easy for us because as humans, we are more prepared to think in a rationalized way, in the sense of solving complicated things, and not so much to have this sense of vision of the complexity and see the canvas and the landscape of the things. So when I started to develop my profession more related with the topics of digital transformation, what I've done was kind of understand moving forward, understanding how information and technologies help people, but also help organizations to create value. And during all this journey, actually, we have been developing ourselves with communication, and information was always there with a very strong asset to allow us as individuals and organizations to create more and more value. But recently, we moved to a next generation of intelligence that is not intelligence related with the individuals, but it's more this concept of contextual and collective intelligence, which means that the concept of intelligence nowadays is outside our brains. It's in this global brain that is a network actually of brains that are working together in order to produce this common knowledge that we can use to be more advance more in our lives or in our organizations. But the particular thing is that this is no longer just a connection between people. Actually, this is a connection where people are trying to work with machines and collaborate with machines in order to produce this knowledge to create value for humankind as a higher sense. So when this arrived, this topic, this small topic of the issue of COVID, it was kind of a break for this development of the digital transformation strategies and so on in some cases, but naturally it gave even more power to the sense that we need to work together. We need to work outside our organizations if we want to collaborate in order to create a better ecosystem. So we are in a stage right now that we want to better understand, govern, manage this environment of learning, of intelligence, and particularly when we discuss topics like artificial intelligence, we actually want to teach machines to think like us. And when I started to discuss these and understand these and study these, my first reactions were, okay, this is great. We will teach machines, but are we aware that we are probably the first threat to machines? Because if we are sharing our knowledge, are we able to teach machines? Do we want the machines to be like us? So I started to develop these topics, and I crossed this sentence that made me kind of mind-blowing. That was related exactly in a way we see each other when we exploring this topic of knowledge. My question for you is, think about it. Do two people who don't know what they are talking about know more or less than one person who doesn't know what he's talking about? And recently, with all these movements of fake news and post-truth, what we see is that when humans start to collaborate with each other, sometimes they produce something that they believe to be knowledge, But actually, the answer for this question is maybe when two people don't understand what they are talking about, they know even less than one person that don't know what they are talking about. And why is that? Are we creating this sense of thinking we know, but actually we are developing not knowledge, but something different? It's a little bit related with this conclusion that what makes us humans, and I always thought about that like that way, is that we think that our ability to learn and to explore knowledge is what makes us humans. But actually is extraordinary when we understand that what makes us humans is not the ability to learn. It's the inability not to learn. So every time we cross a situation, we are learning. So when we are in our organizations and our challenge is no longer only to change and improve the knowledge among humans, but also involve machines in this environment, what come across us is that we need to deal with humans, but we also have to deal with some kind of other assets and other elements like machines that are probably not so well prepared to understand how we think. Because what makes us humans is the inability, as I said, to learn, or supposedly we need to learn what is, let's say, good knowledge and try to avoid what we can say bad knowledge. So learning knowledge and not learning ignorance is one significant part of us, of being humans. So when I started to understand this, or at least from this perspective, I started to learn more and study more about ignorance. And it's amazing because actually I was facing this challenge both in academia and with my clients for so many times. As I said, I work with clients that are from the side of the business that want to understand better the IT, but I also work with people from the IT that want to understand the business better. So this fight of business IT alignment was always there. So when I realized that, okay, I'm not only dealing with knowledge or intelligence, I'm actually also dealing with ignorance. And every time we talk about the word ignorance, it's like, oh, how rude is that word? But once we start studying ignorance, we understand that this is not only bad. Being aware of the types of ignorance that we face will allow us to better understand how to share and how to help others. So I kind of invented this word of ITnorance just to make sure people understand that when we are dealing with this concept of information technology, there are lots of topics that we understand, but there's a huge the size of unknowns related with the speed of change of information technology. So improving the knowledge of information technologies in companies and organizations is also a way to improve the awareness of the ignorance and the type of ignorance. So what I'm going to share with you right now is the types of ignorance, actually the types of ignorance of information technology that I found to be real in the organizations that I work with today. So first of all, it's important to understand that there are two big groups of ignorance. One is related with the, let's call it active ignorance, that is kind of ignore the things because they found it, the people found it irrelevant for their livings or their organizations, let's say so. And the other side is kind of a passive ignorance. It is an ignorance that most of the times is not understood or so well understood. So what I'm going to share are the 9 types of ignorance that we will face. And again, understanding those 9 types will allow you not to see ignorance only from the bad side, but also to understand that are very positive things related with the types of ignorance. So let's see the first type of ignorance that is called untopicality. And topicality is very common in my day-to-day because I deal with people in the board of directors that typically have a vision of the world that is a little bit challenging when comes new disruption like information technology. So the guys are kind of responsible to make their organizations to survive in the future, but they are most of the times or many times are looking to the past in order to ensure the company moves to the future. So every time someone goes there and say, oh, look, this new generation technology, people say, yeah, I don't kind of like that. It's not because they don't know it, it's just because they hoped not to get those technologies, because most of the times that those technologies will bring also disorder to their organizations. So these guys are mainly concerned with keep the order of the things. Most of the times you will say, okay, this is good, order is good. So there's a good side because we have a leader, we have someone that have a vision in a certain direction, but nowadays with all the change around us, this untopicality topic will bring more challenges for organizations because the leaders also have to change in order to adapt not only to the internal, but mostly to adapt their organization to the external environment. The second type is the taboo. I love this one because this one is very common if we study the religion and so on. Every time a new technology arrives, there are always a group of people that say, whoa, wow, this amazing technology will change the world for the better. But there's always a huge group of people that think absolutely the opposite. Please stop the use of that technology because that will damage all of us and our organizations. For example, imagine artificial intelligence. This is a type of discussion that nowadays we are seeing. There's a side that understands artificial intelligence as an augmentation of our human skills, but other side will say, no, it will take our jobs. This is very dangerous. Let's not go through that side. So again, this is a type of a conscious ignorance of not looking to the things, even if the things are there. This will protect for sure from incidents, because if we don't use the things, we will not get damaged with the things, but we'll block lots of the opportunities that we have nowadays. The third topic of a positive, if I say like this, ignorance, is one that is also related with the teachers, or at least the ones that want to go deeper and deeper and deeper understanding the things. So undecidability means a type of ignorance that it's not a very actionable type of people. They understand technology, they really understand the technology, but they are not so well focused in the value creation of the technology, which means that every time they understand, okay, there's an opportunity here, they decide to go deeper and deeper and deeper to understand it in detail and not moving forward to use it. So there's a good side because they will understand all the details, all the specifics, but will be a bad side of not being allowed to create value with information that we already have. So this is always, again, that I want to focus that all these types of ignorance have a good side and a bad side. So moving for the other side, the types of ignorances that actually are passive, not active types of ignorance, I will start with the confusion. This is a very common one. When I started to work with digital transformation, the first confusion was, is this digital marketing? Why? Because nowadays people use so many technologies in their day by day. So every time someone uses technology, it's kind of, now I understand technology. But that's not the case. Most of the times people confuse the use of technology with what is behind technology. So going across different platforms, different use cases is not so easy because they mix everything. Because they use Instagram, they think they understand about digital transformation. Because they use a mobile phone, they think they can understand mobile strategies and so on. So confusion is a type of ignorance that people are aware of technology, and that's great. But they need to be clarified that there are different layers of knowledge regarding technology that need to be understood if we want to use the technology in our good and to create value directly. The next one is the inaccuracy. This one is very typical in managers, for example. I work mainly in governance and management. That's why for me, the details, the hows are not so important. I mainly focus in the whys and the whats. So when I'm dealing with the operational area, I mostly understand what are the rules, what are the practices. Then I say, okay, now you can implement things how you think it's better, and then report to me what you have done. I will measure. So the inaccuracy is a type of ignorance because you don't go and understand all in detail, and you try to act and move forward only by understanding what is the scope of the things and how the things related. So again, inaccuracy sometimes can be bad because you don't understand the details, but it's good because make the bridges, as I mentioned before. The next one is the vagueness. The vagueness is so common nowadays with millennials. There is this sense of global group of changing the world and changing planet, but also in organizations. Most of the times I discuss with organization and ask, what are you doing? And people say, we are changing our organization. And I say, how? Oh, by changing. So vagueness is a type of ignorance that sometimes it's good because people understand they are doing something, they most of the times are sweating. But this vagueness don't allow them to understand that this big change is done by changing the small pieces and having some use cases, specific use case being changed. So again, it's a type of ignorance that can have this impulse of people moving forward, but sometimes will not allow them to really be actionable when they come to use technology, not because of the technology, not because changing everything in one time, but to having this use of technology to support different use cases and, for example, to develop the roadmap for change. The next one is the probability. So this is where, again, professionals from Isaca typically are also included because we deal with risk. And have you ever think that dealing with risk and thinking in a risk way, it's a type of ignorance? But it is. We work with probabilities. So we ignore the certainty that things will happen. We work with a scale of it can happen, but also can't happen. So we, as a risk managers, people from the risk areas, we can move forward if we understand probabilities, levels of certainty. But from the other side, we also can have in these specifics some floatability because we are not dealing with something that we really know. So every time we are discussing about risk, actually we are discussing about ignorance. And again, ignorance is something that nowadays, and risk approaches to what is going on around us, it's very important because we are dealing with the complex world around us. So working in a way that we allow ourselves to be enough ignorant to move forward is something very important. Next, we have the ambiguity. This is very common, for example, in IT vendors, because sometimes when we want to explore some things, some technology, some topic, we don't want to understand it deeply in the first way. So for example, IT commercial people that sell things typically say, no, let's go to cloud because this is hot. So sometimes we use some words that are kind of ambiguous because hot technology can be something, okay, it's hot because it is in the trend, but it can also be some technology that will put fire in our organization. So sometimes we use ambiguity because we want to move forward, not with so many details, but exciting people around these topics. So again, it's a good thing because people is moving forward, but it's something that we need to be aware because we are moving forward without knowing exactly what we are doing. And finally, one that is typically related with students, that is actually the ignorance associated with absence. Mostly when I teach people, young people or new professionals, these guys are great because they don't have constraints, they don't have the past saying this, oh, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. They are really involved in acquiring more new knowledge and they are just open to do that. So the absence of knowledge and the awareness of that is a type of ignorance that is very good because when people recognize they are ignorant, they don't have the knowledge, so they are more open to get their knowledge to them. So at the end, we are working in this house of the unknown. And Isaca community and Isaca knowledge is directly related with this because we are fighting nowadays with these unknowns outside us. Every day things are changing in a very speed way, but we are trying to bring all these unknowns to the house of knowledge. That means if we really understand the types of ignorance that we are dealing with, we are better prepared to recognize what we don't know. So the non-knowledge. And once we organize our minds, okay, I don't know this, I can go and extend my knowledge to a new knowledge. And this is where Isaca knowledge is directly related. This sense of going to good practices, sharing with other professionals in order to fill our gaps of knowledge. And every time we do that is unbelievable great that every time we know more something, we got new levels of ignorance. So we start this circle of continuous learning around these topics, mainly to avoid going in that side of the negative knowledge. That is actually that end. when we decide not to go and learn more and just decide or opting for the ignorance. So actually being here in this conference, and I hope you enjoy this conference, it's an opportunity actually to organize these ideas. Obviously understand the specifics of the topics you like more, but never forget the importance of understanding the scope. And if you are working in a company, never forget that nowadays, like never, your skills, the information and technologies are impacting directly the value creation of the organization. So this is why I share with you this mind map that I use just to put these topics in context, and at the end to highlight the importance of used tools from Isaca and knowledge from Isaca. If you look there, somewhere in the middle, there's COVID 2019. And most of these resources that I put behind these boxes are Isaca resources. So if we really understand the types of ignorance that we have around us, then we can go and get the information and the better resources from Isaca. So behind all these boxes, I have in my mind also this index to the books from Isaca. So this is the view that my suggestion you can get to your organizations, that if you are not talking about the specifics, the techniques of the things, but you are thinking about this landscape and the scope of the organization as one, so I'm sure that you will get lots and lots of good resources from Isaca, particular COVID 2019, that is the college, that is what is getting everything together in this common language. So my final message to you is, the more you know, the less you know. So improve your skills, be aware of your intelligence, but also be aware of your ignorance. Thank you very much.